Taro root is not trendy. It predates trends. Long before wheat fields, before rice paddies became dominant, before potatoes crossed oceans, taro was already feeding people. Quietly, reliably, for thousands of years. Taro root comes from the plant Colocasia esculenta. It is a tropical perennial with large, heart-shaped leaves and an underground corm that stores energy. What we eat is not technically a root, but a corm, a swollen stem base designed to survive harsh conditions. This structure explains taro's resilience. It grows where many crops fail. Wet soil, flooded fields, humid climates. It thrives in places where conventional agriculture struggles. Taro is believed to have originated in Southeast Asia and the Indian subcontinent, then spread across the Pacific Islands, Africa, and parts of the Mediterranean. Human migration carried taro with it. Wherever people settled near water, taro followed. In Polynesian cultures, taro is not just food. It is identity. In Hawaii, taro is transformed into poi, a fermented paste that holds deep spiritual significance. In many Pacific traditions, taro is considered an ancestor, not an ingredient. This level of cultural respect is rare. It tells you something about how essential taro has been. Visually, taro root is unassuming. Brown, fibrous skin, rough exterior. Inside, it reveals white, cream, or pale purple flesh with fine speckles. It does not advertise sweetness or richness. You have to cook it to understand it. And cooking is mandatory. Raw taro is not edible. It contains calcium oxalate crystals that cause intense irritation. These compounds break down completely with proper cooking. Boiling, steaming, roasting, or frying transforms taro from hostile to nourishing. This transformation is central to taro's story. It teaches patience, respect, process. When cooked, taro becomes dense, creamy, and starchy. Its texture sits somewhere between potato and chestnut. It is smooth but not fluffy, rich but not greasy. Flavor-wise, taro is mild, slightly nutty, and subtly sweet. It does not dominate dishes. It supports them. Like rice or bread, it becomes a base for other flavors. This neutrality is why taro adapts globally. In Asian cuisines, it appears in soups, curries, and desserts. In African cooking, it replaces yams or cassava. In Caribbean dishes, it becomes part of stews and fritters. In desserts, taro shines differently. Mashed taro mixed with coconut milk and sugar becomes silky and fragrant. Taro-flavored sweets are common across East and Southeast Asia, prized for their mellow sweetness and color. Nutritionally, taro is energy-dense. It provides complex carbohydrates that digest slowly, offering sustained energy rather than spikes. This made it ideal for farming societies, labor-intensive cultures, and island communities. Taro contains dietary fiber, which supports digestion and gut health. It also provides potassium for muscle and nerve function, magnesium for metabolic processes, and vitamin E, which is relatively rare in root vegetables. Unlike refined starches, taro offers micronutrients alongside calories. This is why it sustained populations for centuries without causing nutritional collapse. Taro leaves are also edible when cooked properly. Known in some regions as taro greens, they are rich in vitamins A and C, iron, and calcium. Again, cooking neutralizes irritation and unlocks nutrition. Agriculturally, taro is efficient. It can grow in flooded paddies similar to rice, or in upland fields depending on variety. It tolerates heat, humidity, and heavy rainfall. This adaptability makes taro valuable in the context of climate change. As weather patterns become unstable, crops that thrive in extremes gain importance. From a sustainability perspective, taro offers strong yields per area with relatively low input. Traditional farming systems often integrate taro into polycultures, reducing soil depletion. Culturally, taro represents continuity. It does not chase novelty. Recipes change slowly. Preparation methods are inherited. Knowledge is passed down. Modern food systems often overlook taro because it requires preparation. It demands cooking. It resists convenience. But this resistance is part of its value. The biggest mistake people make with taro is treating it like a potato. It needs more thorough cooking. It rewards slower methods. Rushing it leads to irritation or poor texture. When respected, taro delivers comfort. Depth, stability. Taro does not compete for attention. It anchors meals. It feeds generations. It is not flashy food. It is survival food elevated to culture. In a world obsessed with speed, taro reminds us that some foods exist on longer timelines than we do.